HBO has long been known for pushing the boundaries of what most people will watch. Over the years, the premium TV channel has courted scandal with its range of adult programming, but some of HBO's gambles have turned into missteps. Here are the biggest scandals to have hit HBO. HBO has been talking about its upcoming alternate history drama for a while now, but Confederate appears to be stalled as of February 2019. Vulture, however, reports that the network swears the delay has nothing to do with any kind of controversy. So what is the controversy? Well, as you might have guessed from the title, Confederate will present an alternate history in which the Union ended up losing the Civil War, and slavery was never abolished. Yep, go ahead and cringe. It will be a story about slavery in the ages of iPhones, the internet, and pay television. Now, even if you can forget that a Confederate victory wouldn't necessarily have meant an end to the evolution of human morality, the whole idea is still kind of repugnant. It's hugely insensitive to the modern struggles of Black Americans, and it's also likely that plenty of unscrupulous people will interpret the show's themes and ideas in some unfortunate ways. Luckily, it may be a while before Confederate goes into production. The show was meant to be spearheaded by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, the showrunners of Game of Thrones, who are also about to start work on the first of a series of Star Wars movies. That means Confederate won't hit screens for many years to come, if it sees the light of day at all. Film and television productions can get away with a whole heap of hijinks. Stars can show up drunk, directors can come out with some pretty stupid stuff on social media, and all kinds of collateral damage can take place, without ever harming the production itself. Hurt an animal, however, and people will start to feel a lot less generous. According to the Huffington Post, back in 2012, HBO had a short-lived series called Luck, which starred Dustin Hoffman and was about the often ugly world of horse racing. Unfortunately for HBO and pretty much everyone involved in the series, some of the ugliness of the real-world sport made its way into the show's production. It didn't take long for Luck's luck to run out. As it turns out, horses are very large and easily startled, making them far more accident-prone than other animal stars. The problems for Luck started right out of the gate when a horse broke a leg during the pilot episode and had to be put down. After Luck's third on-set equine death, the network released a statement defending its safety record while simultaneously explaining why it couldn't guarantee that it could keep its four-legged stars safe. It read, "Safety is always of paramount concern. We maintained the highest safety standards throughout production, higher in fact than any protocols existing in horse racing anywhere, with many fewer incidents than occur in racing or than befall horses normally in barns at night or pastures. While we maintain the highest safety standards possible, accidents unfortunately happen, and it is impossible to guarantee they won't in the future. Well, there's one way to guarantee those accidents stop happening: cancel the show, which is exactly what HBO did." Yeah, Louis C.K. said something offensive. Big deal, right? These days, it feels like the contentious comedian can't even open his mouth without stirring up controversy. This time, though, it wasn't just C.K. being offensive. It was also Chris Rock and Ricky Gervais, while Jerry Seinfeld looked on in disgust. According to USA Today, the incident happened in 2011 on an HBO special called Talking Funny. On the show, Chris Rock told CK he was the blackest white guy I know, causing CK to inexplicably come back at him with a serious racial slur.
You're saying I'm a
Yes.
Instead of staring on in horror as CK took the joke too far, Rock then responded in turn, and then even more inexplicably, Ricky Gervais cracked up, and not in an uncomfortable or shocked kind of way either. Only Jerry Seinfeld seemed uncomfortable.
I don't think he could do that.
Oh.
What?
I don't think he has those
There's
qualities.
only two.
And then, as Rock and CK went on to explain why it's okay for them to use that word, Seinfeld seemed to resign himself to his co-star's attempts at humor.
You found the humor of it.
Yeah.
I haven't found it.
Right.
Nor do I seek it.
Curiously enough, this incident didn't cause many waves on social media at the time, but came to light years later after CK was caught up in another career-wrecking scandal. How he got away with it in the first place, however, is anyone's guess. Ari Shavit's book, My Promised Land, is a love story to the nation of Israel, and it had such a profound impact on HBO chief Richard Plepler that he wanted to make it into a film. During a panel at the 2014 INTV conference in Jerusalem, he said, "What a privilege to capture the essential truths of this book and to make a film that could reach millions of people, not only in Israel and the US, but all over the world." Then, a reporter named Danielle Barron came forward with a story. She didn't exactly name Shavit as the man who, quote, lurched at her like a barnyard animal, but she did say her attacker was a well-known Israeli journalist who had just written an important book. Everyone sort of figured it out regardless, and Shavit insisted it had all been what he called a misunderstanding. Then a second woman came forward with similar accusations, and Shavit kept on insisting he had no idea his actions would upset anyone, and that he was very sorry. It was too late for HBO though, which was already in the end stages of the My Promised Land documentary. In a 2016 statement, the network said, "There's nothing more to say at this time except that this project is in the post-production/editing stage." In late 2017, 2 more women came forward with accusations against Shavit. As of 2019, My Promised Land is still not listed among HBO's offerings. TJ Miller, who starred in the HBO series Silicon Valley, has been wrestling with the same misconduct allegations since before he was a star. The accusation comes from an anonymous accuser who says Miller hit, choked, and sexually assaulted her while the two were in college. Miller denies it all, and he even issued a statement to the Daily Beast that basically said his accuser was using the current climate as a place to, in his words, bandwagon, despite the fact she kept her identity secret. Miller said, "It is unfortunate that she's choosing this route as it undermines the important movement to make women feel safe coming forward about legitimate claims against real known predators." Unfortunately for Miller, the Daily Beast tracked down people who could corroborate the details of his accuser's story, although the original incident was handled by the student court at the university, and privacy laws prohibited them from discussing the outcome. Miller graduated early, but was also expelled after he graduated, which seems to indicate that something didn't go well for him. By the time the accusations resurfaced, TJ Miller was no longer working on Silicon Valley, so HBO got off the hook by issuing a simple statement. There were no reports of sexual misconduct during TJ Miller's time working at HBO. Considering Brexit has been one of the most controversial political issues in recent British history, it's no surprise that a movie about the subject should be equally contentious. In Brexit, the Uncivil War, Benedict Cumberbatch plays Dominic Cummings, the man behind the Brexit campaign. Cummings was always a highly controversial figure, and the film doesn't paint him in an especially even light.
Is it immigration? Is it immigration? You can be honest. Is it immigration? What about immigration? Is it race? Is it different races not mixing? Is it race not being integrated?
Of course, if you're a Brit who did vote for Brexit, the Uncivil War's depiction of Cummings isn't going to put your beliefs in a particularly sympathetic light either. But even the film's timing is controversial, because in the real world, there's an ongoing investigation into the tactics of the pro-Brexit campaign, and some critics say the film could inadvertently interfere with that. One journalist has compared it to a hypothetical scenario in which an American studio released a film about the Mueller investigation while it was still ongoing, something which probably wouldn't make a lot of people happy. Most episodes of Game of Thrones are pretty gory to say the least, so you might be forgiven for thinking it would be kinda cute for the show to sponsor a blood drive. When this actually happened, however, things didn't go too well. According to the Daily Beast, the blood drive was called Bleed for the Throne, and participants were entered to win a trip to the season premiere in New York, and also received a limited edition Iron Throne t-shirt. That wasn't the bad part though. The real news behind the blood drive was that gay men were excluded from participating, unless they'd been celibate for at least 12 months. The reason? Because the FDA said so. Gay men have actually been prohibited from donating blood since the early years of the AIDS epidemic. Today, it's a pointless and discriminatory restriction since HIV isn't exclusively a disease of the gay community, and donated blood is already screened for infectious diseases. There were alternate ways for people who couldn't donate to enter the competition, but the press materials didn't exactly make that information obvious. And even still, it seems like the kind of thing that ought to remain in the past. Before Brett Kavanaugh, there was Clarence Thomas, the original Supreme Court member to have been accused of sexual misconduct. As you probably know by now, HBO is pretty fond of making movies about this issue, so naturally, they decided they were going to make one about Clarence Thomas and his accuser, Anita Hill. According to The Wrap, however, DC lawmakers weren't especially pleased with Confirmation, mostly because they were annoyed about its portrayals of themselves. Former Senator Alan Simpson of Wyoming even said he'd sue, saying at the time, "An attack unanswered is an attack believed." That was back in 2016 though, and nothing seems to have come of his threats. Simpson also complained that the script seriously distorted the actual events of 1991, when Anita Hill was called to testify at Thomas's Senate confirmation hearing. In response to Simpson's complaints, HBO defended their process and said the film was well-researched and vetted, and that it also, quote, speaks for itself. For centuries, elephants have been horribly abused by their captors. They're not domesticated animals, so the only way to make them do what humans want is to be inexcusably cruel to them. Unfortunately, things aren't much different today, even in Hollywood. According to Show Snob, Westworld got into trouble with PETA in 2018, not just because they employed elephants on their show, but also because the elephants came from a company that PETA says is known for its abusive training practices. PETA even dug up a video which appears to show the abusive training of one of the elephants specifically used in that episode. Obviously, it's cheaper to use real elephants than to painstakingly animate them with CGI, but if Game of Thrones can do it with all their direwolves and dragons, it seems like Westworld could have too, and avoided the whole ugly scandal in the process.
And elephants?
No elephants, Your Grace.
That's disappointing.
Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.